The jungle outside the human base was always alive with strange sounds. Bird-like creatures screamed in the tall trees, while glowing insects moved like sparks in the heavy air. The human soldier, Captain Ryan, had walked this path many times before, but on this night, it felt different. His footsteps echoed in the silence, and every shadow seemed to move with hidden life. He had been ordered to repair a communication tower deep in the forest. The machines were old, the wires cut by storms, and the signal was weak. But as Ryan worked, he felt something watching him. Something close. He turned quickly, hand on his weapon, but saw nothing except mist curling between the trees. Then he heard a soft sound, almost like breathing. He aimed his light into the bushes, and there she was, a small figure, no taller than 4 feet, standing still and silent. Her eyes glowed pale silver, her ears were long and sharp, and her hair shined like golden threads. At first Ryan thought she was just a child from some alien tribe, but then he noticed how the air itself seemed to shift around her. The insects stopped buzzing, the jungle fell quiet, and his heart raced without reason. It was as if her presence pressed against his mind, whispering without words. "Stay back," Ryan warned, raising his hand. But his body did not obey him. His arm lowered by itself, his legs stepped forward, and his breath caught in his chest. He felt as if invisible strings pulled him closer. To her, the small alien girl tilted her head, watching him with curious eyes. She did not speak, yet her gaze told him everything. She was not afraid of him, not even of his weapon. Instead, it was he who felt powerless before her. Ryan tried to resist, clenching his fists. He shouted in his mind to stop walking, but his body ignored him. The girl blinked slowly, and he froze in place, unable to move. It was then he realized the truth. She controlled him. His pulse hammered in his ears. If she wanted, she could make him drop his gun, kneel, or even end his life. And yet, she only watched him, like a child studying a toy. Her small hands touched the side of the communication tower, and the broken screens flickered back to life without repair. Ryan stared in shock. She had no tools, no wires, yet the machine obeyed her will. It was not only him she controlled, it was everything. Technology bent to her presence as easily as his own body. For a moment, anger flared inside him. He hated the idea of being someone's puppet, but then he saw her expression, not cruel, not mocking, but lonely. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak but could not find the words. The forest remained quiet, the night heavy with tension. Ryan took a slow breath, even though he had no choice in it. He felt her power holding him still, yet also sensed something else. She was testing him, measuring how much control she could take. Finally, the girl stepped closer, her small hand reaching toward his head. Ryan's instincts screamed to back away, but his body stayed frozen. Her fingers brushed his forehead lightly, and a wave of calm spread through him. The fear faded, replaced by an odd warmth, almost like comfort. Then, as quickly as it came, the pressure lifted. Ryan gasped, stumbling backward, free again. He raised his weapon, but she only tilted her head and blinked. It was as if she wanted to show she could break him, but chose not to. The communication tower buzzed back online behind them. The signal lights glowed, proving her strange power was real. Ryan's orders had been to repair the tower, yet she had done it without effort. This was no ordinary alien child. This was something far more dangerous. He lowered his weapon slowly, breathing hard. The girl stood quietly, watching him with glowing eyes. She did not smile. She did not speak, but Ryan felt the unspoken truth. She had chosen him. From that night forward, his life would no longer belong to himself. The small stranger controlled more than his actions. She controlled his future, and Ryan knew, deep in his heart, that he could never escape her. The next morning came heavy with mist, the jungle wrapped in a gray blanket. Ryan stood outside the base, staring at the horizon. but his thoughts were trapped in the night before. He could still feel her touch on his forehead, a soft brush that had stolen all fear. She was not just a child, not just some lost creature. She was something more. The memory burned inside him. His body had not been his own. His hands and legs had moved without his command. Even the machines had bowed to her will, screens glowing with life when she touched them. Ryan felt the weight of it. The strange truth that one small girl had power beyond anything he had seen when he entered the control room. The other soldiers noticed his pale face. "Captain, are you all right?" one of them asked. Ryan forced a nod, hiding the truth. How could he explain that he had met an alien girl who controlled everything he did? How could he tell them that their weapons, their systems, maybe even their very lives, could bend to her gaze? He tried to push the thoughts aside, but she did not let him. That same day, she appeared again, stepping silently into the base, as if the guards could not see her. The soldiers continued their work, blind to her presence, while Ryan froze in shock. It was not possible, yet it was happening. She made herself invisible to everyone except him. Her silver eyes found him across the room. Ryan felt his chest tighten, his breath caught, as if held by invisible hands. She tilted her head slightly, and his body obeyed. He stood up from his chair without meaning to, his hands resting on the table as if commanded. The men around him gave curious glances, but quickly looked away. They did not hear the silent voice pressing into his mind. They did not feel the strings pulling his muscles tight. Ryan realized the truth. She was not just powerful, she was selective. Her control reached only those she chose. And for some reason, she had chosen him. The girl walked closer, her steps soft, her golden hair catching the light of the screens. Every eye should have turned to her, yet none did. It was as if she existed only for him, a haunting presence that belonged to his world alone. When she stopped before him, Ryan felt his knees weaken. She raised her gaze slowly, and the weight of it crushed him. It was not pain, but it was pressure. His heart pounded, his mind screamed to resist, but his arms lifted against his will. He dropped his weapon onto the floor with a metallic echo. The sound rang out, but the soldiers around him did not react. They typed on their screens, adjusted wires, and spoke softly, blind to the moment unfolding before them. Ryan's voice shook. "What do you want from me?" But she gave no answer. Her eyes glowed brighter, and his mouth closed. Silenced by her will, he tried again to resist, but his body betrayed him. He was trapped in a cage with no walls, bound by nothing but her gaze. Then something strange happened. She smiled, small and fragile, as if amused by his struggle. Her hand reached out and brushed his shoulder, and the weight lifted for just a moment. Ryan gasped, free again, though his chest still burned with fear. The girl turned her attention to a nearby console. Without touching a single button, the machine hummed and shifted its display. New codes appeared on the screen, signals stretching farther than the base ever reached before. She had boosted their system, given them power they did not earn, and yet no one noticed, except Ryan. Confusion twisted inside him. She was not here to harm them, at least not yet. She was showing him, again and again, that she could help. But she also wanted him to know that he had no choice in the matter. Her message was clear without words. I control you, because I can. Later, when Ryan left the control room, she followed him. He walked through the corridors, and though his boots made noise, her bare feet made none. She was a shadow at his side, always watching, always near. When he tried to run, his legs stopped after 2 steps, frozen by her will. When he tried to shout, his voice vanished, caught in his throat. Ryan clenched his fists, the anger and fear mixing in his chest. But then he looked into her eyes, and what he saw made him pause. There was loneliness there, deep and endless. She was a child, yes, but one cursed with power that isolated her from all others. Maybe she followed him not to enslave, but to connect. The jungle wind rattled the metal walls. The lights flickered as if in warning. Ryan leaned against the corridor wall, breathing hard. The girl stood before him, silent as ever, but her gaze softening. It was in that moment he understood the truth. She could command every breath he took, every step he made, but deep inside her silver eyes, he saw something more than control. He saw a plea, a cry for someone to stay. Ryan swallowed hard, his voice low. If you want me to follow you, you don't have to force me. Her eyes blinked, the glow dimming slightly. For the first time, she looked almost human, almost fragile. And yet, as he stood there, Ryan knew the power in her eyes would never release him fully. He belonged to her now, whether by choice or by force. Days passed, but the memory of her eyes never left Ryan's mind. Wherever he went, she was there, silent and unshaken. She walked behind him in the corridors, appeared near him in the jungle, and sometimes even waited inside his quarters, without knocking. No lock, no guard, no weapon could keep her away. At first, Ryan felt like a prisoner. He wanted to fight, to resist, but each attempt ended the same. His body froze under her control, his voice silenced, his will bent, and yet, the more she followed him, the more he noticed something different. Her eyes were not filled with cruelty, but with sadness. One night, Ryan sat near the edge of the base walls, staring at the alien moon. The silver light poured across the jungle, and he finally spoke without fear. You don't want to hurt me, do you? He whispered. The girl appeared beside him, as if called by his voice. She did not answer with words, but her small hand reached toward the moonlight. Her eyes reflected its glow, and Ryan saw loneliness painted across her face. He remembered the first time she touched his forehead, how calm he had felt, how the fear had drained away. It was not a weapon she carried. It was a connection. She wanted him to understand, even if she had no way to say it. The next day, when Ryan went to repair a damaged drone, she followed. The machine sparked and hissed. Wires broken, but the moment her hand touched it, the sparks faded. The drone rose into the air, humming steadily, as if new. Ryan watched in awe, his anger softening. She had not come to destroy. She had come to help. But her way of helping was strange and dangerous. When soldiers complained about broken weapons, she made Ryan walk into the armory. He tried to stop, but his body obeyed her silent command. The others laughed at him, calling him restless, but then she fixed their weapons with a glance. They thought Ryan had done it, but he knew the truth. She wanted him to be her voice, her mask in front of others. Slowly, Ryan realized what she was building. Not just control, but a bond where she used his body to interact with the world. She could not reach, and though it frightened him, he could not deny the strange closeness growing between them. One evening, he caught her standing outside in the rain. The drops fell hard, soaking her golden hair, yet she did not move. Ryan stepped toward her, confused. Why are you just standing there? He asked softly. She looked up, her silver eyes filled with something heavy. And then, for the first time, her lips parted. Her voice was faint, like a whisper carried by the wind. Alone, she said. The word struck Ryan's heart. He had never heard her speak before, and now the meaning was clear. She was not controlling him for fun, not for power. She was controlling him because she was afraid of being left behind. Ryan's breath shook as he knelt before her. You don't have to be alone, he said gently. Her eyes widened, shimmering with something that looked almost like tears. And then, without warning, the pressure in his chest faded. She released him, fully. For the first time since they met, he stood still, waiting for the invisible strings to return. But they never came. She looked at him, trembling, as if scared he would walk away. Ryan could have left, his body finally free. But he did not move. Instead, he stayed, choosing to remain beside her. That night, something shifted. The soldiers still joked about Ryan's strange behavior. But now he no longer felt like her prisoner. He felt like her protector. He watched her more closely, noticing how she avoided crowded rooms, how her hands shook when others passed too near. She could control them if she wished. but she chose not to. Only with him did she release her full power. It became clear to Ryan that she had trusted him with her secret. No one else knew of her strength. No one else heard her speak. Only he carried the burden. And with that burden came a strange sense of duty. He wanted to shield her from the world that would surely hunt her down, because he knew, sooner or later, others would see her as a weapon. The jungle nights grew colder, storms shaking the sky. Ryan sat inside the base one evening, watching the rain slam against the windows. The girl sat beside him quietly, her silver eyes reflecting the storm. For the first time, Ryan did not feel the pressure of her control. He felt only her presence, warm and steady. He whispered, "If you trust me, I will protect you." Her head tilted, her golden hair falling across her face, and then she whispered back, one word, soft but strong, "Promise." Ryan nodded, the weight of the vow heavy on his shoulders. From that moment, their bond was sealed. No longer master and puppet, but something deeper, something fragile and dangerous, an unspoken connection that tied his life to hers. But as the storm raged outside, Ryan also knew one thing: their hidden bond would not stay hidden for long, and when others discovered her power, the true battle would begin. The bond between Ryan and the alien girl grew stronger with each passing day. She no longer needed to speak, no longer needed to touch him. Her eyes alone carried enough weight to bend his will. A single glance from her could make his legs walk, his hands rise, his heart race. It was a power, both beautiful and terrifying. Ryan began to notice the change. She did not even try to hide it anymore. If she wanted him to stop moving, he froze. If she wanted him to fight, his body moved before his mind could catch up. Her command was silent, invisible to others, but louder than any voice inside his head. The soldiers around him started to whisper. "Something's wrong with the captain," one of them muttered. "He moves like a puppet sometimes." Another laughed. Ryan tried to smile, tried to play it off, but deep inside, fear gnawed at him. How long could he hide this? How long before they saw the truth? One evening, during a patrol in the jungle, the danger became clear. A pack of alien beasts lunged from the shadows, their bodies glowing faint blue under the moonlight. Ryan raised his weapon, but before he could fire, her eyes caught his, and suddenly, his body moved with unnatural speed. He dodged their claws, his arms fired precise shots, his legs carried him faster than ever before. He killed them all in seconds, faster than human training could allow. The soldiers stared in shock. "Captain, that was impossible," one of them whispered. Ryan swallowed hard, his chest burning with the knowledge of the truth. It was not his skill, not his strength. It was her command. She had pushed his body beyond its limits, using him as her weapon. When they returned to the base, tension spread among the men. Some whispered that Ryan had been enhanced secretly. Others thought he was hiding alien tech. But one officer glared at him with suspicion. "Something isn't right with you, Captain," he said coldly. Ryan forced a laugh, but the alien girl appeared behind him, her silver eyes glowing softly. The officer blinked, looking around, but he did not see her. Only Ryan felt her presence, heavy as a chain. Later that night, Ryan sat alone in his quarters. He whispered into the silence, "Why are you doing this to me?" The girl stood near the door, quiet as always. Her eyes met his, and his body froze. The question caught in his throat. She walked closer, every step pulling him deeper into her control. When she stood before him, she raised her hand slowly, without speaking, without even touching. Ryan felt his body kneel. He dropped to the floor, powerless. Anger and fear clashed inside him. "Stop!" He wanted to shout, but his voice never came. Tears burned in his eyes, not from pain, but from helplessness. Yet as he knelt, he saw her face more clearly. Her expression was not cruel, it was desperate. She wanted him near, wanted him to stay, and this was the only way she knew how to make it happen. The next day, trouble came from the outside. A group of soldiers cornered Ryan in the mess hall. "Tell us what you're hiding," one of them demanded. Ryan tried to explain, but before he could, his body froze again. His hand slammed down on the table with such force, it cracked. The soldiers stepped back, eyes wide. Ryan's voice echoed, but it was not his own will speaking. "Leave him alone," the words came out. But they belonged to her. The soldiers fled, terrified. Ryan sat there trembling. His own mouth, his own voice, had been stolen to protect him, or maybe to protect her. He realized then that their bond was no longer hidden. Others would notice, others would fear him, and soon they would fear her. That evening, when the alarms blared across the base, Ryan rushed outside. A storm had damaged the defense walls, and hostile creatures approached from the jungle. The soldiers scrambled into position, weapons raised, but Ryan felt the weight of her eyes once more. His body moved faster than theirs, his aim sharper, his will no longer his own. He fought like a machine, every step guided by her silent command. The battle ended quickly, but the silence that followed was heavy. The soldiers stared at Ryan as if he were no longer human. Whispers spread. "He's not one of us anymore. Something controls him." Ryan felt the distance grow between him and his men. He wanted to speak, to explain, but her eyes were on him again, and once more. His voice was stolen. Later, when they stood alone under the moonlight, Ryan finally managed to whisper, "You're going to destroy me." The girl's silver eyes softened, her small hand trembling. Instead of commanding him, she placed her hand gently on his chest, and for the first time, Ryan felt no pressure, no invisible strings, only warmth, only her quiet presence. She could control his every move, but in that moment, she chose not to. Ryan realized something terrifying and beautiful. She did not want a slave, she wanted trust, but the world around him would never understand, and he feared the day when her silent command would be revealed to everyone. Because on that day, the line between protector and prisoner would vanish forever. The whispers around the base grew louder with each passing day. Soldiers avoided Ryan in the halls, their eyes full of suspicion. Some respected him for his sudden skill in battle, but most feared him. They believed he carried a secret, some strange force no human should have. Ryan knew the truth, but he could not share it. The alien girl remained always near him, her silver eyes watching. She walked in silence through the shadows, her presence hidden from others. Only he could see her, only he felt the pull of her gaze, and only he carried the burden of her power. One evening, Ryan sat near the defense wall of the base, staring out at the jungle. The alien girl stood beside him, quiet, her golden hair glowing in the dim light. He finally asked the question that had burned in his mind since the first night. "What are you?" he whispered, his voice trembling. For a long time, she did not answer, her eyes fixed on the stars. Then she turned to him, her lips parting slowly. "Last," she whispered. Ryan frowned, confused. "Last of what?" he asked gently. Her eyes shimmered with sadness, and she lifted her small hand. Images filled his mind, not spoken, not shown, but felt. He saw vast cities of shining towers, alien skies painted with light. He saw people like her, thousands of them, their silver eyes glowing in unison. He felt their power, the ability to command armies, to bend machines, to control minds with ease. But then, he saw fire, destruction, and war. Her people turned against each other, their powers tearing worlds apart. Their gift became a curse, a weapon too dangerous to control. One by one, her people vanished, until only she remained. Ryan gasped as the vision ended, his heart racing. "You're the last of your kind," he whispered. She nodded slowly, her voice faint, alone. The weight of it crushed him. He understood now why she clung to him, why she controlled him. She was not just a child with strange powers. She was the final echo of a race that once ruled the stars. And in her loneliness, she had chosen him as her anchor, her link to life. Ryan felt anger at her people, anger at their power, but he also felt pity, deep and unshakable. The small girl who commanded his every move was also a child carrying the burden of an entire civilization, and he, unwilling or not, had become the one she trusted. As days passed, she began to show him more. When they walked through the jungle, she pointed to the trees. Strange symbols glowed faintly in the bark, marks left by her ancestors when Ryan touched them. Images filled his mind again, knowledge, memories, warnings. He saw how her people had ruled, not with armies, but with command of willpower itself. No weapon could resist them, no leader could defy them. They bent empires like trees in the wind. Ryan pulled his hand away, shaken. He looked at the small girl standing before him, her eyes calm but heavy with memory. "You could control everyone here," he said softly. She nodded. "Yes, then why me?" he asked, his voice low. Her answer came in a single word: trust. That night, Ryan lay awake, her presence sitting silently near his bed. Her silver eyes glowed faint in the dark. Watching over him, he thought of her words, of the visions, of the power she carried. He thought of how easy it would be for her to command the entire base, the entire planet, but she did not. She chose him, and him alone. The truth frightened him, but it also bound him tighter to her. Soon, others began to notice things they could not explain. Machines repaired themselves without tools. Doors opened when no one touched them. Weapons locked or unlocked on their own. The soldiers whispered of ghosts, of strange spirits in the jungle. But Ryan knew the truth. It was her, always her. One evening, an officer confronted Ryan in private. "We know something's happening," the man growled. "Tell us what you're hiding before we tear this base apart." Ryan clenched his fists, struggling to answer, but then he felt it again, the weight of her silent command. His lips parted, and her voice spoke through him. "Leave," she said with his mouth, her tone cold and sharp. The officer stepped back, pale with fear, and fled the room. Ryan collapsed afterward. Shaking, he stared at her, his voice breaking. "You're going to make them fear me. They'll think I'm a monster." Her small hand touched his cheek, soft and trembling. "Safe," she whispered, her eyes pleading. Ryan realized she was not protecting herself. She was protecting him. She saw danger everywhere, and her instinct was to shield him with the only power she had. The truth about her race was clear now. They had destroyed themselves because of their gift, but this last survivor, this 4-foot-tall girl, wanted something different. She wanted safety, trust, and a bond strong enough to silence her fear. Ryan felt his chest tighten as he whispered, "I'll keep your secret." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, a small smile touched her lips. It was fragile, but it was real. And Ryan knew he had stepped deeper into a bond that would change everything. But even as peace settled between them, shadows moved outside the base. A rival alien faction had begun to notice the strange signals, the sudden power in the machines. They knew the stories of her race, the legends of silver eyes and silent commands, and they were coming, not for Ryan, but for her. And Ryan would soon learn that keeping her secret would cost more than his freedom. It might cost his life. The days of uneasy peace ended when the enemy arrived. It began with faint signals caught by the base sensors. Strange frequencies, broken messages, whispers of ships moving through the sky. Ryan felt a chill in his chest the moment he saw the reports. They were not storms or beasts. They were organized, intelligent, and coming closer. The alien girl stood at his side as the alarms rang across the base. Her silver eyes glowed faint in the flashing red lights. She did not speak, but Ryan felt her fear pressing against him like heavy air. She knew who they were, long before the soldiers did. When the commanders gathered, Ryan listened to the hurried voices. Unknown crafts, approaching fast. One soldier said, "Could be raiders. Could be a scouting party." Another muttered. Ryan stayed silent, but deep inside, he knew the truth. They were here for her, the last of her kind, the living weapon hidden in plain sight. That night, Ryan sat in his quarters, staring at the floor. The girl stood in the corner, her small frame glowing in the dim light. He whispered, "They know you're here." She nodded slowly, her voice like a soft echo. "Danger," she said. Ryan clenched his fists, torn between fear and resolve. "You have to hide," he told her, but she shook her head, her golden hair falling into her face. Her eyes locked onto his, and he froze, unable to move. "No," she whispered, "fight." Her command rushed into his body. His muscles tensed, his chest burned, and for a moment he felt stronger than ever. But then he realized something different. She pulled back. Instead of forcing him to move, she let him go. Her eyes softened, and she whispered again. "Choice," Ryan gasped, the weight of her will lifting from him. For the first time, she was not controlling him. She was asking, trusting him to choose on his own. And that single act shook him deeper than all her silent commands. The next day, the enemy came closer. Ships roared across the sky, dropping fire into the jungle. The base shook under the impact of bombs, alarms screaming in every corner. Soldiers scrambled, weapons raised, fear painted across every face. Ryan stood at the front lines, the girl behind him, silent and steady. The first wave of enemies came fast, armored aliens with glowing weapons. The soldiers fought bravely, but their shots were wild, their fear too great. Ryan lifted his weapon and fired, his body moving with sharp precision, but this time, it was his own choice, his own will. The girl's eyes watched him, glowing faint. But she did not press her power on him. Every shot he fired, every move he made, was his. He felt her trust like a fire in his chest, pushing him forward. When enemies closed in, he fought with strength he never thought he had. Not because she commanded him, but because he wanted to protect her. The battle raged for hours, smoke filling the air, screams echoing through the jungle. The base shook, walls cracking, alarms still howling. Ryan fought until his arms burned, until his chest ached, but he did not fall, not while she stood behind him. He could feel her eyes on him, not as chains, but as wings, when the enemy pushed harder, sending machines taller than the walls. Ryan nearly broke, his hands trembled, his legs staggered, but then he heard her voice, soft and clear. "Ryan," she whispered. His name spoken for the first time. The sound filled him with fire. He stood tall again, his weapon steady, his heart unshaken. Together, the soldiers rallied around him. They saw his strength, his courage, and they followed. What they did not know was the truth. His strength came not from power, but from trust. The alien girl had chosen not to control him, and that choice had turned him into something greater. The battle ended with smoke and silence. The enemy pulled back, their first assault broken. Bodies lay across the ground, the base cracked and burning. But Ryan still stood, his breath heavy, his hands shaking. He turned to her, and for the first time, she smiled, small and fragile. "You fight," she whispered. "For me?" Ryan nodded, his chest heavy with exhaustion. "Yes," he said softly, "for you." Her eyes shimmered with something almost human, something almost warm. For the first time, he saw not a controller, not a weapon, but a companion, someone who believed in him, someone who trusted him to stand by her side. That night, as the soldiers repaired the base, Ryan sat with her in the shadows. He whispered, "You let me fight on my own." She nodded, her silver eyes glowing faint. "Trust," she repeated, the word carrying more weight than any command. Ryan felt his heart tighten, realizing how much had changed. The turning point had come. She no longer needed to control him to keep him close, and he no longer needed freedom to know he belonged by her side. They were bound not by silent commands anymore, but by something stronger, a bond that would carry them through whatever storms came next. But as the smoke cleared and the jungle fell silent, Ryan knew the truth. The enemy would return, stronger, hungrier, desperate to capture the last of her race. And when they did, trust alone might not be enough to save them both. Asterisk. The jungle was quiet after the battle, but Ryan knew it was only the calm before the storm. The soldiers repaired the walls, patched the towers, and buried the dead. Smoke drifted in the air, carrying the heavy scent of fire and loss. Ryan stood at the edge of the base, his weapon slung across his back, his eyes scanning the horizon. She stood beside him, the small alien girl with silver eyes. Her golden hair shimmered faint in the light of the alien moon. She was calm, silent, but Ryan could feel her unease pressing into his chest. She knew, just as he did, that the enemy would not stop. That night, the commanders called Ryan into the war room. Maps flickered on the holographic screens. Red signals showing the enemy's regrouping forces. They'll return in full strength within days, the commander said grimly. Ryan nodded, his thoughts heavy, his heart torn between duty and the secret he carried. When he left the room, she was waiting in the shadows, her silver eyes fixed on him, silent, but full of meaning. Ryan whispered, "They want you." She nodded, her lips trembling slightly. "Choice," she said, repeating the word she had given him before. The next morning, the sky burned with the light of enemy ships, hundreds of them, descending through the clouds, their engines shaking the air. The base roared with alarms, soldiers running to their stations, weapons charging. Ryan stood at the front line, the girl beside him, her small figure almost lost among the towering soldiers. The first blasts struck, tearing into the walls, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The soldiers fired back, the jungle filling with fire and smoke. Ryan raised his weapon, firing into the chaos, his body moving with fierce resolve. But even as he fought, he felt her eyes on him, calm and steady. She had not taken his will. She was waiting, watching, testing his strength. The battle raged on, enemies pressing harder, their machines crushing the defenses. Ryan pushed forward, leading the soldiers, his voice carrying across the smoke. But when the largest of the enemy machines broke through, the walls, towering like a giant, the soldiers faltered. Fear rippled through the base, their lines breaking, their courage shattering. Ryan raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the girl stepped forward. Her small frame stood in the open, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever before. The battlefield fell silent for a heartbeat, as if the world itself bent under her presence. And then, with a single glance, the massive machine froze, its weapons locked, its engines stilled. The soldiers gasped, eyes wide, some falling to their knees in awe. But Ryan knew the cost. Every time she used her power on such a scale, it drained her, weakened her. Her body shook, her golden hair falling into her face. Ryan rushed to her side, grabbing her arm. "Stop, you'll kill yourself," he shouted. She looked at him, her silver eyes soft. "Safe," she whispered, her voice faint. Ryan felt his chest tighten as he pulled her back, shielding her from the chaos. The soldiers rallied again, firing at the frozen machine, bringing it down with a thunderous crash. But the battle was far from over. More enemies poured into the base, their weapons burning through steel and flesh. Ryan fought with everything he had, his arms heavy, his body shaking, and then he felt it again, her power brushing against him. But this time, she did not force him, she only gave him strength, a whisper of her will, a gift instead of a command. Together, they fought, human and alien, side by side. Every move of his body felt guided not by strings, but by trust. The soldiers followed his lead, their fear fading, their courage rising. For the first time Ryan felt not like her prisoner, but her partner. Hours passed, and finally the last enemy ship fell from the sky. The battlefield lay in ruins, smoke curling into the heavens. The soldiers cheered, raising their weapons, their voices echoing in triumph. But Ryan turned to her, fear gripping his heart. She was trembling, her small body weak, her silver eyes dimming. He caught her before she fell, holding her close against his chest. "Stay with me," he whispered desperately. Her lips trembled, forming words faint as breath. "You choose," she whispered. "Stay." or leave. Ryan's throat tightened, tears burning his eyes. He realized this was the final choice. The bond they had built now resting in his hands. She was not commanding him anymore, not controlling his steps or voice. She was asking, trusting him to decide if he would remain by her side. Ryan pulled her closer, his voice firm despite the ache in his chest. "I stay," he whispered. "No matter what, I stay." Her silver eyes flickered with light, a small smile breaking across her tired face. "Promise," she breathed, before closing her eyes. Ryan held her in his arms as the soldiers gathered. Some looked at her with awe, others with fear, but none dared to speak. They had seen her power. They had seen her bring down giants with a glance, but only Ryan had seen the truth. She was not a monster, not a weapon, not a ruler. She was a lonely child who needed someone to stand with her. As the smoke cleared and the dawn rose over the ruined base, Ryan stood tall, the girl resting in his arms. The war was not over, and danger would return. But he had made his choice, his final choice. He would protect her, not because she commanded him, but because he loved her, and together, they would face whatever future waited for them.